Thank you, Mr. Chrysler, thank you, Mr. Ford. Now we're free to travel everywhere. Now we got a freeway where once a garden grew. Now we got carbon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rick Longinotti, and I'm here with two guests today to talk about transportation. We have an opportunity in November to make a decision about transportation policy in our Santa Cruz County. Today with me, I have Mauricio Rivera and Ernestina Saldana. And before we get into our discussion with our guests, I want to just lay the framework for the decision that is before us. We have on the ballot a transportation sales tax measure called Measure D. Measure D includes around $100 million to build auxiliary lanes on Highway 1. The question is, will that effort reduce congestion? And will it reduce cut-through traffic on our streets, or will it improve safety? Those are important questions. This issue of widening the highway has come up before. In fact, in 2004, there was a ballot measure that was badly defeated that would have spent 65% of the funds to widen Highway 1. The question remains, how effective is this? So we have the benefit of the Caltrans Environmental Impact Report, which says the TSM alternative would result in a very slight improvement in traffic congestion when compared to the no-build alternative. And the TSM alternative, because you don't know what that is actually a much larger project than what is in the sales tax measure. The sales tax measure has a portion of that. So will it stop cut-through traffic in our neighborhoods? No, because the alternative, according to the EIR, will not achieve sufficient congestion relief to attract vehicles off the highway. So what that means is that the promises that we're hoping, that might be hoping for, some of us anyway, that it will not be fulfilled in this measure. The question of safety comes up. The accident rates would remain the same. There actually be more cars on the highway, according to the EIR, so the actual total accidents will go up. So we've known for some time, many, many years, study after study has reported that widening highways does not reduce congestion in any meaningful length of time. It might diminish congestion relief. It might allow relief in the short run, but not in the long run. Cars fill back up the highway. We are just slowly learning that in our county. And so, as all of us are humans, we don't necessarily learn very quickly. We need to send the message again, no on Measure D, that this is not the solution that we're hoping for. There was a study last year, 2015, by the California Air Resources Board commissioned a UC Davis professor to do a study, and she found that adding capacity to roadways fails to alleviate congestion for long because it increases the traffic on the street. What this means is anything that you do to relieve traffic congestion will not have a result for a long time. So what then shall we do about people who are stuck in traffic? I think that's the important question that we're going to talk about. Houston, ironically, this place that has the widest freeway in the world, they've learned the lesson. Their mayor has said that the primary strategy in the past has been to add roadway capacity, but it's not solving the problem, and that he's calling for what he calls a paradigm shift in how they address transportation policy, meaning a real change in where the investment dollars are made. This Measure D doesn't do a paradigm shift. A portion, this good chunk of the funds stays with the old 1950s solution, which was to add capacity to highway. The Caltrans is not going to pay for widening Highway 1. Their goals have shifted. Their goals actually are to increase the other modes by which people travel, including commuters. And so Santa Cruz County, we're really behind the times in terms of the solutions that are widely recognized now, except in remote places that are still interested in widening the highway. We know, some of the downsides, the costs of automobile dependency, wars for oil, greenhouse gas emissions, and the extraction impacts, fracking and drilling for oil out in the ocean with this oil spills. We know that we'd like to solve our problem. I'm sure people who are stuck in traffic would like to solve our problem without incurring these increased dependency on fossil fuels. So let's do it. Let's consider the alternatives. As I mentioned, we had this ballot initiative in 2004 that lost badly. We need to once again send the message. The alternatives that I'd like to talk about are include what our Regional Transportation Commission is already studying, and that is something called bus on shoulder. The Metro bus system recently landed a grant to study, paving that shoulder so that buses only could run on that, buses and emergency vehicles. And it's done, it's done in many, many other places. The other potential that is also being studied by our Transportation Commission is to run bus rapid transit or express buses on Soquel Drive. Another possibility would be to operate transit on the rail line. There has already been a study by the RTC on transit on the rail line, which estimates that there'd be a significant number of people who would use that and that it would be cost effective. People commuting from Watsonville to Santa Cruz would have a 36-minute travel time, and that's day in and day out with no other congestion. We know from the Bay Area community, San Francisco Bay Area and other places, that there are commuter benefits programs. These don't cost a lot. In fact, the federal government subsidizes this to provide incentives for people to use carpools, van pools, bicycles, transit, and so forth. So we do have options that this transportation tax measure doesn't give us. It does set aside some money for a metro bus system, but not sufficient to eliminate the cuts. So yes, we do want to send a message by voting no on Measure D that we have an opportunity then to have other options. So right now I want to talk to our guests and find out why they got involved in the transportation issue. And so I'll start with Ernestina Saldana, who rides the bus a lot. And I want to ask Ernestina, I know you've been, why don't you say a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in transportation?
Mm-hmm. Hi, Rick. I migrated to the United States about 27 years ago, and I was a civil engineer in there before my accident, and have a master's in environmental engineering and a doctor's in the wastewater reuse. And when I came here, I came as an undocumented worker, and many people, and I had to start looking at my possibilities. And before I know, I am involved in education, and from education, I went to social services, and I retired 3 years ago. And so I have a lot of free time and little money. So it's better for me. I always have favored to the use of bus system because that was giving me freedom to, instead of having long commutes where my kids will be, strapped in their chair and I'll be driving to go to work or wherever else, I rather prefer to be with them in the same length of road, talking to them, reading to them, pointing to colors or pointing to numbers, pointing to buildings, birds, everything else around. So it gave me the opportunity to enjoy the trip. Mm-hmm. Okay, and now as I'm getting older and more disabled, it's becoming my solely source of transportation. And I got involved with Metro in this deep sense in 2015. I was, because I have so much free time in my life, I started looking for volunteer opportunities and getting involved with several organizations. And one of the job opportunities I had that I really enjoyed was to be a foster grandparent. And I was assigned to the Santa Cruz Gardens Santa Cruz Garden Elementary School. Santa Cruz Garden Elementary School used to have a bus going by very close, like 1 block from there. In 2008, it was eliminated, that bus stop. So there is no more bus stops in there, but when this happened, Metro committed to continue providing services for Paracruz. And I was using Paracruz to go and to provide the volunteer time for the kids. In 2015, Metro decided, because the economic situation they were going through, to go all the way only to ADA guidelines, which is 3/4 of a mile from the route. And that left the school with no service. So it was something that I feel very deeply about it. I was having the opportunity to be useful, to be involved, and I was making a change on the kids. You know, not only the change of being able to go and help them with math and reading, but the change for them to see a person with disabilities being involved in their lives, an opportunity that many of them didn't have. So I start asking, say, why is this happening? Okay, why you cannot continue what it has been going so far? And the issue came to money. And in September the last year, we lost all these services that Metro was providing about the ADA for Paracruz. And then I hear that for this year, in 2016, we will be losing bus routes. And some of the bus routes that we will be losing was 68, which is one of the bus, is exactly the bus that brought me here today. You know, so this was really impacting my life. And that's the way how I got involved with transportation. Mm-hmm. Okay, and from there, the last year when this year when we start looking about why Metro did not have more money, okay, I find out that the agency allocating the money to Metro was the RTC. And then by focus on the RTC, I find out—
RTC meaning the—
Regional Transportation Commission, which is the agency in charge of allocating money for all the transportation sources in the county. And when I identified that it was coming from the RTC, I find out that the RTC was basically having this measure coming up, and that they want to allocate only 16% of that measure to Metro, which is going to be around 2.2 million per year. And Metro right now is in a deficit of 6.8 million. So if we consider that from here on, there is no more expenses on Metro, not at all, probably with the 3 years of this measure, we will be able to get back even, you know, with Metro. But because you and I know, and the public knows, that Metro is continued having all these expenses, okay, all the time. So it's going to take about 6 to 10 years before Metro is going to be even with this measure. And this measure is a measure that is going to be for 30 years. By the time this measure is over, Mauricio is going to be my age. So it's a whole generation that is going to be tied with this, in places where the limit for sales tax, as you know, is 10%. Okay, and there are places like Watsonville that are barely close to that 10%. And after that, they cannot count with anything else more.
So you must have been in a decision-making mode, because, you know, this measure does have some money for Metro, 16% of the measure, but it's not nearly enough to restore the cuts that are being made. So how difficult was that decision for you?
It was very difficult. It was very difficult, you know, because I know that if this measure doesn't pass, there are going to be more cuts. And by the way, let me just backtrack a little bit in here. The original proposal from Metro was to cut 30% of the bus routes. Okay, so it will be entire areas on the county with no services, like the harbor won't have any service, and the Watsonville, the Hog Lawn Park, all that area won't have any service. We were able to limit that cuts only to 12%. So still, some areas are going to have no service, and other areas will have limited service, and it still have an impact on the population. But And then when I had to decide if I want to support the opposition to measure it was difficult because I know that it will mean more routes to be cut. It may mean some for bus drivers to lose their job, and but in the other hand, I had to gauge what is the difference. If we can allocate the 100 millions that this measure is allocating to the freeway into Metro, okay, the kind of service we are going to have is the top of the services that we can have in the United States. In my dream list, I have Wi-Fi provided in the buses. Okay, I have more service area going back to Minty Way. You know where the elementary school is. Going back to all those places that have been recorded within the time, and also more Spanish service. You know, my son used to work in downtown as a cook, and he was ending his jobs at 11 o'clock. And that time was not bus to the house. Yeah. So he has, and many more people, if you go in Portola after 10 o'clock, you're going to see many people walking home because there is no longer service in that area. Yeah. Okay, so right now, there is a lot of need of this transportation. You know, there is a lot of need, but we don't see it because we don't need it. Okay, we don't have to be at work by 8 o'clock using the bus. We don't have to be coming out of work at 11 o'clock at night and using the bus. Okay, so because it's not affecting us, a lot of us is just ignoring it, you know, and that's something that we need to be aware as citizens in this county, that you cannot consider transportation only like it's transportation and that's it. No, transportation is the way how you can get affordable housing, you can get to jobs, okay? And unfortunately, if I may just extend a little bit, because transportation is not the solely issue that is affecting our county. All of you know that it's very difficult to find an affordable housing in Santa Cruz County. So a lot of people who work in downtown had to live in Watsonville. And that means they need to have a way to come and work. Or the other option, the option that this measure is going to give them is to have their own car, have to pay for insurance, for maintenance, for gasoline, for childcare, because now they are leaving their children far away from work and have to come to work on time, you know. All these other things that are just aggregating to the burden of being a poor person in North County. Mm-hmm.
We're going to come back to that issue, and I want to ask Mauricio, same question. Can you say a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in transportation?
Yeah, so I am the former chair of the transportation committee for the student government at Cabrillo College. Was there for a couple of years, and that was during 2 years ago when the Metro first put a proposal to Cabrillo for the students to fund part of the Metro through a tax, through a fee that will be non-optional for everyone at Cabrillo. I am from a particular background in life, and so I am of the opinion that community college students should not be at any moment the people that, or the group of people that should be paying for any of these services, especially not in a county as Santa Cruz, which is the epitome of income inequality. If you're here in Santa Cruz, it's all nice and people are white and things look pretty, but if you go to the Southeast County in Watsonville, everything is farmlands and not as inclusive in that sense. And so in that idea, it feels disrespectful even to have an institution known to have these convoluted processes, and even speaking of corruption and things of the such, to have an institution like that come and ask for students, community college students, to subsidize them, it seems outrageous to me. Although I understand, I guess, the pragmatism behind it, that if community college students at this point are forced to pay for their services, because if not, they are left without services, then I guess there's priorities in that sense.
So you wish the community as a whole would provide this service and not put the burden on the students?
Yeah, I guess in I give a lot of value to the connection and awareness of privilege of any given person, and in particularly in Santa Cruz, that means that to begin with, the insignificance of the burden of being waiting on the highway is completely minimal, with the worry or urgent need of people in poor conditions to have public transportation. That is the most meaningful and accessible tool for them to get their lives, sustain their lives, basically. And it's truly a human right abuse to have the way in which Santa Cruz County operates and the cuts that they were even thinking of implanting to begin with. And yeah, from that idea, I guess it connects also because given my disregard for the I guess the worries of whoever is driving, I understand that the actual benefit to the environment and the overall sustainability of the city will be much aided if the culture will shift from car culture into a bus system and to public transportation specifically. And yeah, being at Cabrillo with the Student Senate put me in contact with the Metro and with the issues, and specifically given the dishonest approach that the Metro representatives had when coming to speak to the student government. I can quote Jimmy Dutra, for example, when he said, trying to clarify a confused student, saying, if you don't pay for this fee, then all your routes will be cut. And you know, the type of intimidation and simply the way they approach the students is completely inadequate and inappropriate for an institution as such. And
So I want to ask both of you, you know, what you're talking about is a shift in priorities, you know, towards public transit.
yes.
And it seems to me that, see if you agree with this, it seems to me that our county is right now potentially on the verge of making that kind of decision because we are so congested on Highway 1. That highway is at capacity. We know that the bit of money, even though it's a lot of money for us, it's not going to make a difference to congestion to put auxiliary lanes. So is a no vote on this Measure D, is that a way to get to that shift that we want? Is that why you're opposing this?
Well, let me start by saying that if widening the freeway was the answer, there wouldn't be any traffic jam in San Jose or in LA. Okay, so we already know that's not the answer. And widening the freeway in the Santa Cruz, even if it is only from 41st to Soquel to State Park, it won't solve the problems that we have with the traffic jams, because the traffic jam on the High Street, the traffic jam on Seabright, that has nothing to do with the freeway. Okay, that's internal. That's local traffic, the one that is jamming all those streets, Portola, Park, Soquel Drive. Okay, so it doesn't matter that you put that auxiliary, okay, it's spending $100 million on it again. But if you put a bus service that it is reliable and it is what we need, okay, if it's reliable, free to students, free to low-income people, free to seniors and disabled people, okay? And if this bus is going to be working from 6 to midnight, if it's going to be coming with enough frequency to serve the needs of the students, the needs of the workers, the needs of the mom going shopping, okay, so people are going to start using that bus. We will be able to take care of the problems in the High Street and the problems in Seabright or the problems in Soquel Drive, okay? And so yes, right now we are in a time on history to make history. You know, if we vote against this measure and we put that money to serve the public, to really to enforce and to upgrade the services that Metro are providing, we are going to be able to take many cars from the freeway, many cars. Maybe 40,000 like they did in the Bay Area. You know, 40,000 out of the car, that will make room for people who are traveling all the way to Watsonville to be there in 30 minutes and being able to have dinner with their families, you know. But putting more lines, you know that it's just going to call more cars in there, and it's going to be the same thing, just more cars in there. Thank you.
Yeah, Mauricio, I'm wondering, you know, if you think, you know, that this idea that public transit gets a priority instead of just the, you know, the weak stepchild of our transportation system, does that mean that all classes of people need to be, you know, using it? I mean, can we, and how do we get there? How do we get all classes of people using it?
Well, also this connects, I guess, in Santa Cruz County particularly to the clear intention of the city council to allow for gentrification to occur, to push the homeless population out, and to modernize Santa Cruz. That's a very easy connection to make when thinking of cutting bus routes, or it's pretty clear that the population that will require or be in the need of bus routes are the population that will not have access to this development that they are trying to plan for. And so it's yeah, to begin with, I guess the political will should be there, and there's definitely a lack of that in city officials. Second, I guess it's it also, you know, the fact of the status quo forces you in this particular sense to have a car, or to idealize the idea of having a car so that you can move around, so that you can do all the cool things that you should be able to do with a car. Yeah, that's in that sense, that's fueling capitalism in a very destructive way, very suicidal way in that sense. And so I guess being a biker myself, I guess the idea of putting the bikes and the idea of using public transportation as another resource additional to having energy and having the availability of biking, for my particular situation, I guess it's the ideal way to push people out of that culture of cars. And yeah, I guess that'll be a
Okay,
idea.
thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we're out of time. This is a great conversation. Thank you to my guests. And this was a difficult decision for all of us. We're facing Measure D, funding some important things, a portion of the money going to Metro. But as you've heard our guests say, this doesn't represent the kind of shift that we need in our transportation priorities. And so the first step is to vote this down, and then the next step would be to come back, or to advocate that our leaders come back to us with a measure that provides the things that we need without the negative things that are environmentally negative, that won't work, and that exacerbate social inequality in our community. So I want to invite you to think hard about this before you vote on November 8th. And thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you, Mr. Chrysler. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Now we're free to travel everywhere. Now we got a freeway where once a garden grew. Now we got carbon in the air. But the only mark I'm making, the only mark I'm making, the only mark I'm making on the land. When my story's over, when I'm on my way, my bones will make a pattern in the sand, in the sand. My bones will make a pattern in the sand. Thank you, Mr. Edison, for lighting up our world. I'm sure a brighter future was your goal. Once we had a river, now we got a dam.